Title: The Last Desk, A Journey from Failing Grades to Ivy League. Part 1, The Boy at the Back of the Room. Sit at the back, Evan. Chandler's voice echoed through the classroom, flat and tired. It was the first day of ninth grade, and Evan Carter already knew the drill. Back row. Last desk. Forgotten zone. He dragged his sneakers across the scratched linoleum floor, past rows of whispering students, avoiding eye contact. His hoodie was pulled halfway over his head, his backpack hung from one shoulder, and his spiral notebook was already torn at the edges. No one clapped. No one smiled. No one cared. But something was different this time. This was high school. And even if he didn't know it yet, this year was going to change everything. Evan wasn't dumb. That's what he told himself. But he couldn't explain why numbers floated in and out of his head like smoke, or why reading a single paragraph made his brain hurt, or why he'd never once turned in a complete homework assignment without copying half of it from someone else. His grades? Always barely passing. Sometimes not even that. His mom worked 2 jobs, waitressing during the day, cleaning offices at night. His dad? Gone before he turned 8. Books weren't on the table at home. Bills were. Chapter 2. The New Counselor. A week into the school year, a lady in a blue blazer knocked on Mrs. Chandler's door during math class. Her name was Ms. Rivera, the new school counselor. "Can I borrow Evan for a moment?" she asked with a gentle smile. The class turned. Evan froze. This was new. He followed her to the counseling office in silence. Her desk was neat, a small cactus plant sitting beside a coffee mug that read, "One kid can change the world." "Evan," she began, "your teachers say you're smart but struggling. Let's talk about why." He shrugged. "I don't know." "What do you like?" He hesitated. "Drawing, skateboarding, fixing stuff." "Not math?" He laughed under his breath. "Math hates me." Miss Rivera leaned forward. "I think your brain just learns differently. You might not need to fix your grades first. Maybe we fix how you learn." That sentence sat in his mind like a rock dropped into a still pond. Chapter 3. The Discovery. Over the next few weeks, Miss Rivera had Evan take some tests. Quiet ones, not for grades, just to understand how he learned. A few days later, she called him in again. "Evan," she said carefully, "you have something called dyscalculia. It's like dyslexia, but for numbers. That's why math has been a battlefield for you." He blinked. "So I'm not stupid?" "Not even close," she said with warmth in her voice. "You just need the right tools." She showed him software that turned numbers into visuals. She found a math tutor who used puzzles instead of equations. She even got his teachers to allow him more time on tests. But the biggest change? Evan began to believe maybe he could actually learn. Chapter 4. The Middle Seat. In October, Evan moved from the last desk to the middle row. Mrs. Chandler noticed. So did others. No one laughed. No one cheered. But something changed. He raised his hand. Once, then twice. He got his first B on a quiz. Not copied. Not guessed. Earned. At lunch, a quiet girl named Lila sat next to him. She saw his sketchbook. "Did you draw this?" she asked, flipping through detailed pencil sketches of cityscapes and comic characters. "Yeah, just stuff in my head." "You ever think of architecture?" He blinked. "Like buildings?" "Yeah, art and math together." Evan had never once thought of that, but the idea stuck. Chapter 5. Miss Rivera's Plan. By December, Miss Rivera sat Evan down again. "I've been talking with your teachers. They're impressed. You've come a long way." He smiled nervously. "Still failing some stuff, though." "Progress over perfection," she said. "But now let's talk future." Evan stared blankly. "Like college?" "Exactly. But more than that. Purpose, passion, plan." She pulled out a roadmap she'd made for him, like a treasure map. It had boxes. Get a 504 plan for learning support. Join at least one club. Start a sketch portfolio. Meet with a mentor in architecture. Visit a college campus. Evan felt overwhelmed. "I don't know if I can do all that." "You don't have to do it alone," she said. "And remember, it's not where you start. It's where you're going." Chapter 6. One Brick at a Time. January brought snow and second chances. Evan joined the school's art club. Lila introduced him to Mr. Bates, the tech teacher who used 3D software to design buildings. Evan took to it like water to a sponge. He started staying after school. Not to avoid going home, but because he wanted to be there. He built a cardboard model of a sustainable tiny home. It won second place in the regional STEM fair. His grades weren't perfect, but he had A's in art, B's in science, and, miracle of miracles, a C plus in algebra. Not bad for the last desk kid. Chapter 7, The First College Tour. In March, the school organized a trip to Columbia University in New York. Evan had never been to the city, never stepped foot on a college campus. As he walked through stone archways and echoing halls, something clicked. He saw students like him, quiet, focused, dreamers. He stood in front of the School of Architecture. There was a model city behind glass, buildings he wanted to live in, design, build. "Think I could go here?" he whispered to Miss Rivera. "You can go anywhere you fight for," she replied. Chapter 8, The Call Home. That night, Evan called his mom. He told her about the trip, the buildings, the ideas. She listened, exhausted but proud. "You sound different, baby," she said, "like you found your fire." "I think I did," he whispered. "I can't pay for Columbia," she said quietly. "I know," he replied. "But maybe we find a way." For the first time, they weren't talking about how to survive. They were talking about how to build. Chapter 9. Summer in Evan's neighborhood wasn't full of beach trips or summer camps. It was heat waves, cracked sidewalks, and babysitting his younger cousins for grocery money. But this summer, Evan had a different plan. He signed up for a free architectural summer workshop at the local community college. Ms. Rivera helped him apply. He had to write an essay, include drawings, and even record a short video about why he loved building design. "I want to change the way poor neighborhoods are built," he said into the camera. "People say beauty belongs in rich places, but that's a lie. Everyone deserves to live in something inspiring." He was accepted. For 6 weeks, Evan woke up early, rode 2 buses, and sat in freezing classrooms with students from across the city. They learned about blueprints, 3D modeling, eco-friendly construction, and urban planning. He wasn't the best in the class, but he was the hungriest. He stayed after every day. He asked questions. He made mistakes and learned from them. By the end of the summer, he'd built a small digital portfolio and designed a model of a community center made from recycled shipping containers. Chapter 10, The 10th Grade Shift. Returning to school that fall, Evan wasn't just older, he was sharper. He walked into 10th grade with purpose. He carried a binder, a graphing calculator, a laptop covered in stickers of buildings and bridges. His hoodie was still there, but now it covered confidence, not shame. He joined the Student Innovation Club, started sketching in front of people, and signed up for honors English. Because Miss Rivera said architecture requires strong communication, not just design. He even tutored other students in art and basic CAD software. But not everything was smooth. Some kids whispered, "Who does he think he is?" Some teachers still saw him as the remedial math kid. And sometimes Evan felt like an imposter in his own transformation. But he kept going, because forward was the only direction left. Chapter of the studio visit. One rainy Saturday in November, Miss Rivera arranged something big. She took Evan and Lila to visit G&N Urban Design Studio, a real architecture firm downtown. It sat in a glass building that looked like it had no corners, only clean white lines and quiet ambition. They met Mr. Nigel Grant, a black architect in his 40s who wore suspenders and spoke like everything he said was part of a blueprint. "You want to be architects?" he asked them. "Good. It's not just buildings, it's justice with a steel frame." He showed them models of community gardens, redesigned schools, and housing units made with solar panels and green roofs. Then he looked Evan straight in the eyes. "Your designs can outlive you. That's the real power." Evan left with goosebumps and a burning heart. Chapter 12, Math Breakthrough. Evan still struggled with math. No software or visuals could fully remove the fog that sometimes clouded his brain. But this year, he had Mr. Bernstein, a quirky, fast-talking math teacher who used metaphors instead of formulas. He once said, "Evan, solving equations is like designing a building. You don't just throw numbers around. You build a foundation, then stack the logic layer by layer." One night, while doing his homework, something clicked. He stopped seeing equations as enemies. Instead, he imagined them as structures, walls, beams, frames, supporting an answer. He passed his first geometry test with a B+. He told Miss Rivera, it wasn't just math, it was a drawing waiting to happen. Chapter 13, The Speech. In the spring, the school held a youth leadership conference. Miss Rivera submitted Evan's name for a speech about student transformation. He panicked. I can't speak in front of people. You once couldn't solve for X either, she reminded him. He stayed up for days writing and rewriting. Lila helped him practice in the library. The night before the speech, he stood in front of the bathroom mirror and whispered to his reflection, "You've already done harder things." On the day of the event, wearing a shirt and tie that didn't quite fit, Evan stood at the podium, shaking. He began, "My name is Evan Carter. I used to sit in the last desk. Now I want to build the desks, the schools, the future." By the time he finished, there were tears in a few eyes, and even a standing ovation from the back row. Chapter 14, Letters and Logos. That summer, Miss Rivera helped Evan build a real college application strategy. They created a spreadsheet, deadlines, scholarships, essay prompts, test dates. He worked on his SAT essays like he was writing a graphic novel. He even designed a personal logo for his application folder, an abstract E forming a skyline. He applied to 7 schools: Columbia University, NYU Tandon School of Engineering, Cooper Union, Pratt Institute, City College of New York, University at Buffalo, Howard University. He also applied for the Quest Bridge Scholarship, which provided full tuition to low-income students with high academic potential. Each application took hours. Some took tears, but none were rushed. He wasn't just applying for himself. He was applying for the kids still sitting in the last desk, wondering if life could be more. Chapter 15, The Mailbox Moment. One gray January morning, Evan opened his email. The subject line read, "Questbridge finalist, congratulations." His heart jumped. He ran to Miss Rivera's office and burst in without knocking. She screamed, then hugged him. 2 weeks later, he got another email. Columbia University accepted, full scholarship. He didn't cry at first, just sat down slowly and whispered, "I made it." Then he called his mom. She dropped the phone when he told her, then picked it up and cried for 5 minutes straight. Evan sat in silence, letting the moment stretch. It wasn't just college, it was proof. Chapter 16. On the final day of high school, Evan walked into the same room where Mrs. Chandler once told him to sit in the back. He was now the valedictorian. He had a 3.9 GPA, a national scholarship, and had spoken at 2 educational conferences. As he stood in the gymnasium full of cap and gown-clad students, he gave his graduation speech. Not about grades, not about buildings, about mindset. Transformation doesn't come with age, it comes with belief, he said. I learned that sometimes the back desk isn't where you're sent, it's where you start the climb. He thanked his teachers, his mom, Ms. Rivera, and the struggles that forged his strength. Chapter 17, Ivy and Iron. That fall, Evan arrived at Columbia University. The campus was louder, faster, and older than anything he'd ever known. His dorm room was small, but it had a window that looked out over Low Library and the city skyline. On his wall, he pinned the sketch of the recycled container community center he'd made 3 years earlier. In his first class, Introduction to Architectural Theory, the professor said, "Design is memory made permanent." Evan raised his hand. "Yes," the professor said. "I think design is also redemption," he said. "It's how broken places find their future." The room went quiet. The professor nodded. "Well said, Mr. Carter." Evan smiled, because now he didn't just belong. He was building where he once doubted he could even stand.